She's just my ex-wife. Ryan Whitmore said it without lowering his voice. The words disappeared beneath the soft clink of champagne glasses and the muted jazz drifting through the ballroom of the Halston Meridian Hotel, but Naomi Carter heard every syllable. She had been standing less than 15 feet away. For a moment, she did nothing. No flinch. No wounded glance. No attempt to correct him. She simply adjusted the small black clutch beneath her arm and looked across the room at the man she had once promised to grow old beside. Ryan looked exactly as success had taught him to look. 30 years old. Tailored midnight tuxedo. Silver cuff links catching the chandelier light whenever he lifted his glass. Around him stood 3 senior executives and a woman from corporate communications, all smiling as though they already knew tomorrow's headline. Tonight was Halston Meridian Group's annual Company Gala. And according to every whisper Ryan had heard for the past month, tonight was supposed to belong to him. Your ex-wife, one executive repeated, glancing toward Naomi. Ryan followed his gaze. Their eyes met. Only briefly. Then Ryan turned away. Yeah, he said. Long time ago. That was all. 6 years of marriage reduced to 4 careless words. Naomi lowered her eyes to her champagne. She didn't drink. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and if you believe dignity is the strongest revenge, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to her story. Naomi had arrived alone 20 minutes earlier. At 25, she carried herself with a stillness that made people look twice without understanding why. Her black gown had no glitter, no dramatic train, no designer logo demanding attention. Against her dark skin, a pair of small diamond earrings caught the warm light. Nothing about her asked to be noticed. Yet someone had noticed. Across the ballroom, an older man with silver hair stopped in the middle of a conversation. Charles Bennett. Chairman of Halston Meridian's board. His expression changed the instant he saw Naomi. He excused himself from 2 directors and started toward her. 1 step. 2. Naomi met his eyes. Then gave the smallest shake of her head. Charles stopped. For half a second, something silent passed between them. He nodded once and returned to his conversation. No one seemed to notice. Except Naomi. Across the room, laughter erupted around Ryan. Whitmore, one executive said, slapping his shoulder, when they make the announcement tonight, try to look surprised. Ryan smiled. I haven't heard anything official. Sure you haven't. Another round of laughter. Ryan straightened his cuff. His eyes drifted toward the stage, where a long table had been prepared beneath Halston Meridian's illuminated silver logo. 7 chairs. 6 occupied nameplates. 1 remained empty. Naomi watched it from across the ballroom. Ryan didn't. A server passed between them carrying champagne. When the view cleared, Ryan was looking at her again. This time, his expression softened, not with regret, but with the faint confidence of a man looking at someone whose life he believed had stopped progressing after he left it. He excused himself from the executives. Then he began walking toward her. Naomi remained still. Inside her clutch was an ivory envelope bearing the embossed seal of Halston Meridian's board of directors. Ryan stopped in front of her. His smile was polite. Almost charitable. Naomi, he said. I didn't expect to see you here. Her fingers rested lightly against the envelope hidden inside her bag. I know, she said. Behind him, Charles Bennett glanced at the clock. And for the first time that evening, Naomi smiled. 6 years earlier, Naomi Carter had learned that a marriage could end long before anyone removed a ring. It happened on a rainy Tuesday night in their small apartment, with cold coffee on the kitchen table and 12 pages of a business plan spread beneath the yellow pendant light. Naomi was 19 then. Young enough to believe love meant building two dreams at once. Ryan came home after 10, loosened his tie, dropped his keys beside the door, and barely looked at the papers. "You're still working on that?" Naomi glanced up from her laptop. "I finished the projections." She turned the screen toward him. Revenue models. Acquisition targets. Notes she had rewritten until 2 in the morning while Ryan slept beside her. "I think distressed companies are being valued wrong," she said. "Some of them don't need to disappear. They just need better management and patient capital." Ryan opened the refrigerator. "You want to buy companies now?" "Eventually." He laughed softly. Not cruelly. That almost made it worse. He carried a bottle of water to the table and skimmed the first page while standing. Naomi watched his face, waiting for curiosity. Instead, he closed the folder. "You don't build companies, Naomi." The refrigerator hummed behind him. Rain tapped against the windows. "You dream about them." She stared at the folder beneath his hand. Ryan kissed her forehead as though he had said something kind. "Come to bed." Naomi stayed at the table after the bedroom door closed. That became the shape of their marriage. Ryan moved upward. Naomi moved quietly behind him. She proofread presentations before his interviews. Remembered clients' wives at company dinners. Ironed shirts before dawn when he had early flights. When he received his first management promotion, Naomi canceled a meeting with a potential investor because Ryan wanted her beside him at the celebration. He thanked his mentors that night. His boss. His team. Luck. Naomi stood 3 feet away holding his champagne. She told herself it didn't matter. Then came another promotion. A larger apartment. Better suits. Later dinners. And gradually, Ryan stopped asking what Naomi was working on. One evening, she found her business plan beneath a stack of unopened mail. Dust had gathered along the edge. She wiped it away with her thumb. Ryan entered the kitchen while answering an email. "I got shortlisted for Halston Meridian," he said. Naomi smiled. "That's what you wanted. It changes everything." He finally looked at her. Something in his expression made the room feel strangely unfamiliar. "You know," he said, "some people build empires." Naomi waited. "Some people support the people who do." There was no argument afterward. No broken glass. No screaming neighbors. Only silence. The next morning, sunlight stretched across the kitchen floor when Naomi removed her wedding ring. She placed it beside the coffee maker. Then she opened the drawer where her abandoned business plan had been sitting for nearly 3 years. Ryan appeared in the doorway. His eyes moved from the ring to the folder in her hands. "Naomi." She looked at him. For years, she had been waiting for permission to become the woman she imagined. That morning, she understood something painfully simple. She had never needed it. Naomi tucked the business plan beneath her arm. Ryan watched her walk toward the door. He thought she was leaving their marriage. He had no idea she was walking back toward herself. "So what are you doing these days?" Ryan asked it with the careful politeness people used when they expected an uncomfortable answer. Naomi looked at him over the rim of her untouched champagne. Around them, the gala moved in polished circles. Crystal glasses chimed. A pianist worked through something soft beneath the conversations. Beyond the windows, Manhattan glittered against the black sky. "Investing," she said. Ryan blinked. "In what?" "Companies." For a second, he simply stared at her. Then came the smile. Naomi remembered that smile. It was the same one he had worn years ago at their kitchen table when she showed him her first business plan. Not openly cruel. Almost affectionate. A smile that said he had already decided what she was capable of. That sounds ambitious. It keeps me busy. Ryan slipped one hand into his pocket. I heard you left that consulting firm. 3 years ago. Oh. He covered the mistake with a sip of champagne. Naomi said nothing. Ryan glanced toward the stage, where technicians were checking microphones beneath the enormous Halston Meridian logo. His confidence returned almost immediately. There are going to be changes around here after tonight. So I've heard. Big ones. Someone across the ballroom raised a glass toward Ryan. He answered with a nod. Naomi watched the gesture. He was already accepting congratulations for an announcement that had not happened. I'm probably getting ahead of myself, he said, though his expression suggested otherwise. But if things go the way everyone expects, I'll have influence over several departments. Naomi tilted her head. And? Ryan hesitated. I might be able to help you. With what? A position. The word settled between them. Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice as though offering her something generous enough to require discretion. Strategy. Research. Maybe acquisition support. Nothing glamorous at first, but it could get you back into the corporate world. Naomi's fingers tightened once around the stem of her glass. Not from anger. From memory. The kitchen table. The dusty business plan. Some people build empires. Some people support the people who do. 6 years later, Ryan was still speaking to the woman he remembered. He had simply failed to notice that she no longer existed. That's generous, Naomi said. Ryan smiled. I know things didn't exactly turn out the way you planned. Her eyes lifted to his. You think they didn't? Before he could answer, movement near the stage caught Naomi's attention. Charles Bennett had stepped beside 2 board members. One of them whispered something into his ear. Charles checked his watch. 8 minutes. Ryan followed Naomi's gaze. You know what tonight is about, don't you? I have an idea. They're restructuring the executive committee. That's not what I meant. His smile faded slightly. Naomi placed her champagne on a passing tray. Then she asked, almost casually, Ryan, do you know who owns Halston Meridian? He laughed. No one does yet. That's half the drama tonight. Apparently the acquisition was handled through some private investment vehicle. Naomi nodded. And you're not curious? Of course I am. Apparently we'll all find out tonight. Apparently. Ryan studied her. Something about her calmness was beginning to bother him. Before he could ask another question, a clear note rang through the ballroom as someone tapped the microphone. Conversation softened. Charles Bennett stepped onto the stage. Ryan immediately straightened his jacket. Naomi reached inside her clutch. Her fingertips touched the ivory envelope. Across the room, Charles looked directly at her. This time, Naomi did not shake her head. She gave him one quiet nod. Naomi's first office had been above a coffee shop that opened before sunrise and leaked heat through the floorboards. The room was barely large enough for a desk. One window. One second-hand chair. One laptop with a cracked corner. Every morning at 5:30, the smell of roasted coffee climbed through the vents while delivery trucks groaned along the Brooklyn street below. Naomi liked those mornings. Nobody was watching her. Nobody was telling her what she could become. 6 years earlier, she had walked out of her marriage carrying one suitcase, a business plan, and enough savings to survive 4 months. By month 3, most of the money was gone. She called investors from the small desk beneath the window. Some never answered. Some listened for 30 seconds. One man interrupted her halfway through her pitch. "How old are you?" 20. Silence. Then a polite goodbye. Naomi placed the phone down. She stared at it for several seconds. Then she opened her notebook and dialed the next number. That became her routine. Coffee. Numbers. Rejection. Repeat. Her first real opportunity came from a logistics company in Queens that no serious investor wanted. 12 trucks. 38 employees. Late invoices. 2 months from insolvency. The owner expected Naomi to offer money. Instead, she spent 3 nights studying his books. When they met again, she slid a spreadsheet across the table. "You don't have a revenue problem," she said. He frowned. "You have a collection problem." Nearly $400,000 was trapped in unpaid invoices while the company was borrowing money to cover payroll. Naomi negotiated repayment schedules with clients, eliminated 2 unnecessary leases, and rebuilt the company's billing system. 9 months later, the business was profitable. She did not buy a new car. She bought equity in another company. Then another. A regional packaging manufacturer. A struggling medical supplier. A software firm with good technology and terrible management. Naomi discovered she had a talent for seeing value underneath disorder. Carter Vale Capital began with 2 desks. Then 5. Then an entire floor. Her mornings changed slowly. The cracked laptop disappeared. The coffee shop became a glass conference room overlooking Manhattan. People who once ignored her calls began requesting meetings. Still, Naomi kept the original business plan in the bottom drawer of her desk. The pages were worn now. One sentence remained underlined from years earlier. "Patient capital can rescue what impatient people abandon." She never told Ryan. There was nothing to tell. He had stopped being the audience for her life. One Monday morning, Naomi entered Carter Vale's conference room carrying black coffee. 8 members of her investment team were already seated around the table. A thick presentation waited at every chair. Her chief investment officer, Daniel Brooks, stood beside the screen. "We have a new target," he said. Naomi sat down. Industry. Diversified corporate services. Strong underlying assets. Weak governance. Significant operational waste. The first slide appeared. Naomi lifted her coffee. Then stopped. Across the screen was a silver geometric logo she knew immediately. Halston Meridian Group. For several seconds, no one spoke. Daniel changed slides. At the bottom of the page, beneath a list of senior executives, appeared one familiar name. Ryan Whitmore. Naomi set her coffee down carefully. Daniel noticed. "You know someone there?" Her eyes remained on the screen. "Yes." "Is that a problem?" Naomi looked at the company's numbers. Then at the name of the man who once told her some people built empires while others merely supported them. Her expression did not change. "Not yet," she said. The meeting lasted 3 hours before anyone said Ryan Whitmore's name again. By then, the words Project North Star glowed across the conference room screen. Naomi sat at the head of the table, turning pages while her investment team dismantled Halston Meridian piece by piece. The company was larger than anything Carter Vale had acquired before. Profitable. Recognizable. And quietly bleeding. 7 subsidiaries performing overlapping functions, Daniel Brooks said. 3 executive layers that shouldn't exist. Procurement costs are 18% above comparable companies. Another slide appeared. Numbers filled the screen. Naomi studied them without speaking. What about debt? Manageable. Customer retention? Strong. Then the business isn't broken. Daniel nodded. The management structure is. Naomi leaned back. That was what interested her. Not Ryan. Not their marriage. Not some old sentence spoken across a kitchen table. Halston Meridian had good bones buried beneath expensive mistakes. Exactly the kind of company Carter Vale was built to find. Then Daniel changed slides. Executive performance. Ryan's photograph appeared beside his title. Senior Vice President. Naomi's eyes rested on it for less than a second. Ryan Whitmore oversees one of the stronger divisions, Daniel said. Revenue increased 11% under him. Someone across the table glanced at Naomi. She noticed. Of course she did. Stop. The room became still. Naomi closed the report. I was married to Ryan Whitmore. No one moved. Daniel already knew. Several others clearly did not. Naomi folded her hands on the table. That creates a potential conflict. Our recommendation doesn't depend on him, Daniel said. I know. She looked around the room. But knowing isn't enough. Naomi pushed the voting packet away. For the preliminary recommendation, remove me. Daniel frowned. You're the managing partner. And today I'm also the former wife of one of the target company's executives. Silence. I want North Star evaluated as if Ryan Whitmore works somewhere else. She stood. If the deal survives without my vote, bring it back. Then Naomi walked out. For 47 minutes, she waited alone in her office. Manhattan stretched beyond the glass. On her desk lay the old business plan she had carried out of her marriage 6 years earlier. Naomi opened it. Patient capital can rescue what impatient people abandon. She ran one finger beneath the sentence. Then the conference room door opened. Daniel entered carrying a single sheet of paper. Naomi looked up. Well? Unanimous. She said nothing. Without you, he added. Daniel placed the recommendation on her desk. Halston Meridian is undervalued. The board is vulnerable. 3 major shareholders are willing to sell. If we move quietly, Carter Vale can acquire control before the market understands what's happening. Naomi looked at the document. How quietly? Very. A pause. We'd use a special purpose vehicle until closing. Ryan would never know. Neither would most of Halston Meridian. Naomi picked up her pen. Daniel watched her. You're certain? She looked once more at the numbers. Not Ryan's photograph. Not his title. The numbers. If his name disappeared from that company tomorrow, Naomi asked, would you still tell me to buy it? Yes. Her pen touched the page. Then his name doesn't get to change the answer. Naomi signed authorization for due diligence. Daniel collected the document and walked toward the door. Naomi? She looked up. What do we call the acquisition publicly? Nothing yet. The door closed. Naomi remained beside the window as evening settled over Manhattan. Far across the city, Ryan Whitmore was working late inside a company that still paid his salary. He had no idea his ex-wife had just authorized the first step toward owning it. The final signature took less than 3 seconds. 6 weeks of negotiations ended with Naomi Carter drawing her name across a single line beneath a stack of documents thick enough to change hundreds of lives. She placed the pen down. No applause followed. No champagne waited in silver buckets. Only the quiet hum of the conference room and Manhattan glowing beyond the windows. Daniel Brooks sat across from her beside 2 attorneys. "Closing is confirmed," he said. Naomi looked at the final page. Carter Vale Capital now controlled 62% of Halston Meridian Group. The number felt strangely ordinary in black ink. Board notifications. Completed. Employees. Tomorrow morning, after the formal announcement. Daniel closed his folder. And Whitmore? Naomi's eyes lifted. The question had been waiting all afternoon. One attorney shifted slightly in his chair. Daniel continued carefully. "Given your history, the board wants clarity before the transition. Ryan's position gives him access to sensitive operations." Naomi leaned back. "Has he violated company policy?" "No." "Mismanaged his division?" "No." "His numbers are strong." "Then why are we discussing his employment?" Daniel understood. "We shouldn't be." "No." Naomi gathered the papers into one clean stack. "Ryan remains an employee until his performance says otherwise." The room went silent. There would have been easier choices. She could have removed him before he ever discovered who controlled the company. One phone call. One signature. A small revenge delivered from a corner office. But Naomi had not spent 6 years building something disciplined just to let an old wound make decisions for her. The attorneys left first. Daniel remained. "There's one more thing." He slid an ivory envelope across the table. Halston Meridian's silver seal shimmered beneath the light. Naomi opened it. The annual Company Gala. Friday evening. The invitation had originally been prepared for major shareholders before the acquisition closed. Her name had been added only that morning. Daniel watched her read it. "You don't have to attend." Naomi looked through the glass wall toward the city. Somewhere inside Halston Meridian's headquarters, rumors were already moving faster than facts. A new controlling investor. A restructuring. A board announcement. And, according to Daniel, another rumor. Ryan Whitmore believed Friday night would bring his promotion. "Does the board expect me?" "They expect the owner." Naomi's eyes returned to the invitation. Owner. Years earlier, Ryan had stood beneath a yellow kitchen light and told her some people built empires while others supported the people who did. She felt no anger remembering it now. Only distance. "Keep my identity confidential until Bennett makes the announcement." Daniel studied her. "You want Ryan to find out with everyone else?" "I want everyone to find out at the same time. That includes Ryan. That's his coincidence, not my strategy." Daniel smiled faintly. Then he nodded and left. Naomi remained alone. She opened the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside lay the old business plan. Beside it, she placed the gala invitation. Past and present. Paper beside paper. On Friday evening, Naomi dressed without diamonds beyond 2 small earrings. She chose a simple black gown. No entourage. No announcement. Before leaving, she slipped the ivory invitation into her clutch. Her phone vibrated. A message from Charles Bennett. "Everything is ready." Naomi read it once. Then typed 3 words. "Proceed as planned." Across Manhattan, Ryan Whitmore was fastening silver cuff links, preparing for what he believed would be the biggest night of his career. Naomi closed her clutch. Neither of them knew exactly how the evening would end. But only one of them knew who owned the room. "My ex-wife," Ryan said, with the easy smile of a man introducing a footnote from his past. "She's between things right now." The three executives standing beside him offered Naomi the kind of polite smiles reserved for strangers at expensive parties. Naomi held Ryan's gaze. She did not correct him. Minutes earlier, Charles Bennett had stepped away from the microphone after announcing that Halston Meridian would reveal its new controlling investor before the evening ended. That single promise had changed the temperature of the ballroom. Whispers moved beneath the chandeliers. Ryan seemed energized by them. "Naomi used to be interested in business," he continued. "Used to be." One executive nodded. "What field?" Ryan answered before she could. "Strategy, mostly." Naomi almost smiled. 6 years ago, he had called it dreaming. Tonight, apparently, it qualified as strategy. "I'm sure we could find something suitable," Ryan said. "Especially after the restructuring." The executive beside him raised an eyebrow. "You expecting more responsibility, Whitmore?" Ryan gave a modest shrug that convinced no one. "We'll see." Laughter followed. Naomi noticed Charles across the room. He had heard everything. His jaw tightened slightly, but Naomi gave him the same quiet look she had given earlier. "Not yet." Charles turned away. Ryan missed the exchange completely. He reached for another champagne flute. "If tonight goes the way I expect," he said, lowering his voice, "I may be able to put in a word for you." Naomi looked at him. "For me?" "Something in research. Maybe acquisition support." There it was again. The offer. Presented like mercy. Ryan leaned closer. "You wouldn't have to prove yourself all at once." For one brief second, Naomi saw the old apartment instead of the ballroom. Yellow kitchen light. Rain against glass. Her business plan beneath Ryan's hand. "You don't build companies, Naomi." She returned to the present. "That's generous," she said. Ryan smiled, satisfied. Behind him, 2 board members walked toward the stage. The musicians finished their song. Servers began clearing the center aisle. Naomi glanced at the front row. 7 chairs. 6 nameplates. 1 empty seat. Ryan followed her eyes. "That's probably for the new owner." "Probably. I've been trying to figure out who it is." "Any guesses?" "Private equity, obviously. Someone old school. New York money." Naomi lowered her eyes briefly. "Interesting." Ryan checked his watch. "I should get closer to the stage." "Of course." He hesitated. There was almost kindness in his expression now, which somehow made the moment sharper. "Whatever happens tonight, Naomi, I hope things work out for you." She studied the man who had once been her entire future. Then she looked past him toward Charles Bennett. The chairman stepped behind the microphone. The ballroom lights dimmed. Conversations died one by one. Ryan straightened his jacket and moved toward the front, accepting another congratulatory pat on the shoulder. Naomi remained where she was. Charles opened a black folder. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight marks a new chapter for Halston Meridian Group." Ryan's smile widened. Naomi slipped one hand into her clutch. Her fingers touched the ivory envelope. Charles continued. "As many of you know, a transaction involving a controlling interest in this company was completed this week." A murmur swept through the room. Ryan looked toward the empty chair. Charles paused. Then his eyes found Naomi. "The acquiring party now holds 62% of Halston Meridian." Ryan stopped smiling. And Naomi began walking toward the stage. The first person to understand was not Ryan. It was the chief financial officer. His eyes moved from Charles Bennett to Naomi, then toward the empty chair in the front row. Ryan was still facing the stage when Naomi passed him. For half a second, confusion crossed his face. Naomi? She kept walking. The ballroom had gone so quiet that the sound of her heels against the marble seemed impossibly loud. One step. Then another. Charles waited beside the microphone. Behind him, the screen changed. Carter Vale Capital. Ryan stared at the name. He knew it. Everyone in the room knew it. The investment firm had spent the last several years quietly acquiring undervalued companies, rebuilding them, and turning failing operations profitable. Ryan looked at Naomi again. Then back at the screen. His expression changed. "No," he whispered. Charles continued. Following the completion of the transaction, Carter Vale Capital now holds a 62% controlling interest in Halston Meridian Group. A murmur rolled through the ballroom. Naomi reached the front row. Charles stepped away from the microphone. For the first time that evening, he smiled openly at her. "Ms. Carter," he said, "please take your seat." A board member removed a small black cover from the empty nameplate. 3 words appeared beneath the chandelier light. Naomi Carter, owner. Ryan stopped breathing. Only minutes earlier, he had offered her a position in acquisition support. He had told executives she was between things. He had promised to help her get back on her feet. Now the chairman of Halston Meridian was waiting for her. Naomi looked at the chair. Then she sat. Charles extended his hand. She took it. The board members rose. One after another. The chief financial officer stood next. Then the executives nearest the stage. Within seconds, almost the entire ballroom was on its feet. Naomi did not look at Ryan. That was what hurt him most. There was no triumphant smile. No revenge waiting in her eyes. No satisfaction demanding to be witnessed. She simply belonged there. Ryan remained standing among the crowd, but for the first time all evening, no one was looking at him. Charles returned to the microphone. "Ms. Carter founded Carter Vale Capital 6 years ago. Under her leadership, the firm has completed 14 major acquisitions and restored profitability across multiple industries." Ryan's eyes found Naomi. 6 years. The number landed harder than everything else. 6 years ago, she had left their apartment carrying a business plan he had laughed at. 6 years ago, he had believed she was walking away with nothing. Naomi finally turned toward him. Their eyes met across the room. Ryan's face had lost all color. His lips parted. She could almost see the question forming. "Why didn't you tell me?" Naomi gave him no answer. Charles lifted his glass. To Halston Meridian's next chapter. Glasses rose throughout the ballroom. Naomi lifted hers. Ryan did not. And as applause filled the room, his eyes dropped toward the nameplate in front of her. Owner. 1 word. That was all it took to destroy 6 years of assumptions. But Naomi had not come to destroy him. Tomorrow morning, Ryan would learn something even harder. Owning his company did not mean she intended to punish him. It meant she no longer needed to. Ryan arrived at the boardroom 12 minutes early. For the first time in years, being early did not make him feel prepared. Morning light poured through the glass walls of Halston Meridian's executive floor, turning the long conference table silver at the edges. A performance report waited at every seat. Ryan found his name on one. He remained standing. At exactly 9, the directors entered. Naomi came last. No black evening gown now. A charcoal suit. Small earrings. A leather folder beneath one arm. She took the chair at the head of the table without looking at Ryan. The meeting began. For 40 minutes, Naomi discussed margins, redundant departments, procurement contracts, and restructuring timelines. Not once did she mention their marriage. Then Charles Bennett reached the executive review. Ryan Whitmore. Ryan's shoulders tightened. Naomi opened his file. Revenue growth is 11%, she said. Client retention is strong. Operating costs improved last quarter. Ryan stared at her. She turned a page. However, the leadership audit identified weaknesses in cross-division management and succession planning. There it was. The promotion. Ryan looked toward Charles. The executive committee appointment will not move forward, Naomi said. Silence settled across the table. Ryan's jaw tightened. And my current position? You remain senior vice president. He blinked. You're keeping me. Naomi finally looked at him. Your division performed well. Confusion replaced the anger on his face. After everything he had said at the gala, he had prepared for humiliation. Instead, she had given him numbers. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. Directors gathered their folders and left. Ryan stayed seated. Naomi was nearly at the door when he spoke. Is this because of us? She stopped. Morning traffic moved far below the windows. Naomi turned. There hasn't been an us for 6 years. Ryan looked down at the report. Then why deny the promotion? I didn't. His eyes lifted. The audit did. Naomi walked back and placed one finger on the highlighted section. You're excellent at running your division. You're not ready to run other people's. Ryan swallowed. And if I become ready? Then the numbers will say so. No cruelty. That was what left him without anything to fight. He looked at her for a long moment. I was wrong about you. Naomi closed the folder. Once, those words might have meant everything. At 19, she would have carried them home like proof. At 25, they were simply late. I know. Ryan's eyes dropped. I thought you needed me. Naomi's expression softened, but only slightly. I did. He looked up. Once. She walked toward the door. Naomi. Her hand rested on the handle. I'm sorry. She stood there for one quiet second. Then nodded. Not forgiveness promised. Not reconciliation offered. Just acknowledgement. Naomi stepped into the glass corridor. Sunlight stretched across the floor ahead of her. Behind her, Ryan remained alone with his performance report and the company logo he had once mistaken for proof that his life had become larger than hers. Naomi did not look back. 6 years ago, she had left a kitchen carrying 12 pages and no certainty. Now hundreds of employees worked inside a company she controlled. But that was not the victory. The victory was quieter. Ryan had spent 6 years believing Naomi needed to prove him wrong. She never did. She simply built a life in which his opinion no longer had a vote.